and this is the Calm Scribe in conversation with TR Albe. And as you can see, there is a new command that I've created specifically for tonight. So if you type !guest in the chat, it will give you all of the fun ways to connect with Ted. So our guest tonight is Ted, TR Albe, and he is an author who focuses on science fiction and fantasy books for kids and their gamer geek parents. Currently, he is working on a steampunk children's book series and podcast called The Tales of Galdonia. He has a super secret science fiction series in the works, presently called Codename Space Trash. He lives in Philadelphia with his wife and son, but you can find him broadcasting weekly on twitch.tv.
And you can hear my son in background, most likely. So he's, like I said, he's quite animated tonight. I don't know why he's animated, but he's there. So,
yeah. You can hear my daughter screaming from time to time in the background as well. So welcome, Ted. Cheers. I see you've got your beer going.
I do. I was watching. I saw earlier you had like the empty bottle that you had. I was like, ooh, that's not the new one you just got, was it?
No, that's not the new one, but this is the one. So I've got another dram to get me through the interview.
I was like, wow, Travis, we need to have a conversation. That was the new. It's like gone. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, I actually had I had a thing the other day where, because one of the scotches that I like, the 12-year-old Doublewood, is being discontinued for sale in my province.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so I found out there's only 56 bottles left, so I ended up having to go and order one from over 5 hours away and have it delivered specially to my house.
Okay.
My wife wouldn't let me buy all 56. To be fair, neither would my wallet. My wallet.
Oh, well, okay. So. All right. Yeah, I get that. That's
Yeah.
You can't hear me? Wait, can you not hear me? Am I not on audio? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You should be able to hear.
Anybody?
Thought Terror was joking.
Was he joking? Bill, can you hear us?
The audio's fine.
You can't. Oh, you can hear my son.
Okay.
Good. That's good. I was like, am I on mute? What the fuck? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Blame
the kids are all
Jersey.
Supposed to be in bed.
That's right. Supposed to be.
Yeah. So, anyways, I ended up buying another bottle, and the nice, pleasant surprise is when I went to put, because I didn't think I had any Doublewood, and I went to put this in the back of my liquor cabinet, and I found I still had half a bottle. So I've got a bottle and a half that I can sip on until eternity.
Nice.
And go through. It's kind of like my Bushmills, which is only available in the UK.
Yeah.
So, and that also taught me that I need to go through my liquor cabinet and see exactly what I have.
Gotta keep like a catalog of what you got, right? And like a spreadsheet or some sort. It's like, ooh, this is running out. Yeah, it's too bad they don't have like a Bluetooth app that keeps an eye on your on the weight of the bottle, right? You put these weight pads. Ooh, I'm inventing something here, right? It would be like a coaster, right?
Yeah.
It would track the weight, unless it's just already out there. I don't know. Then maybe it connects to your Bluetooth and it tells you figure out what the weight is there and when it's on there, and then when it's down to nothing, then you know that you need to go get more alcohol.
That could be great. It's more convenient. I use an app called Vivino to track my wine cellar.
Yeah,
I can tell what's going in and out. But I have not found an app that works well for a bar.
Really?
Any app that you find for a bar is... One moment, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, she's singing. I love babies. Babies are great. What am I chatting about? Kids, beer, liquor, good times.
Hey, Darius. That's just my wife saying the baby's fussy, so she's taking her for a walk. Welcome, Darius. Yes, we're going to be talking... we're doing an interview with Ted, and we're just kind of sidetracked right off the bat talking about alcohol.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the programs I can find to keep track of your bar are professional bar programs that are free for like a month, and then they want $1,000 for the year, which I'm not paying for. Like, it makes sense if you're a bar, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not a bar, it doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So.
But it also, the same thing happened to like my mother-in-law for Father's Day got me a bottle of Teacher's whiskey, and I thought I'd gone to the liquor store 4 or 5 times, and they kept being sold out. Didn't have any. And when I went to, again, put this bottle away yesterday, I moved things around, and saw that I actually had a bottle hidden in the back that I wasn't aware of. So
Well, I
I,
mean,
I need to take stock.
because you were drinking scotch, I ended up bringing like a Scotch ale on, which is this is my favorite beers. I brought back from Colorado when I was out there. So
Oh, nice. What's that one called?
yes. This is a 90 shilling ale from Odell's Brewing Company. I can't get it in PA. It is beautiful. It's one of my
Nice.
favorites. So, yeah, it's good beer. And I have another one I can't get out from here I have a little cooler down here just in case. So,
Nice. Nice. When was the last time, or was you have the same thing, your favorite flavored water, they discontinued it, but you found one you're cleaning? Nice. Yeah. I think flavored water tends to last. That's like scotch. It lasts a long time as long as it's not opened.
oh yeah.
Darius, the last time I was sick from booze, I'd have to say it's been over 8 years.
And a long time for me, more than that. I stopped drinking hard alcohol like over like maybe 2 decades ago. And man, that last time I ended up sleeping on a church steps in the middle of Philly, sleeping in the middle of a car garage, getting chased out by the attendant. It was a long night. Let's just say that. So after that experience,
Yeah.
I stopped.
I gotta say, I've never fallen asleep on church steps, though I have thrown up in a church garden.
Ooh,
So,
nice.
yeah.
There you go.
It was on the way home from the bar. So, there we go. But yeah, so since my accident, my body, well, actually, once I went on medical marijuana at a very high dose, which marijuana is an anti-venom, antitoxin, and my body doesn't react well to excessive amounts of alcohol anymore. So I can have a couple of scotches in the evening once in a while, but if I have too much, then my body thinks I've been poisoned and makes me quite ill.
Oh no,
So,
that's not good.
yeah.
It keeps you in check.
Yeah, it keeps you in check. And like I was saying the other day on stream, when you're not going out and buying a lot of alcohol, you can save up and afford the more expensive stuff. Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
So you haven't had issues when you're drinking. That's good, Bill. Mary Jane is an anti-venom. It is. Mary Jane is an anti-venom. It's an antitoxin, an anti-venom, an anti-malarial, an antifungal, an antiviral, an antispasmodic. It does a whole bunch of different things. That's why it's medical. And now because my wife is gone, the dog is going off.
Well, the dog, of course. These sort of things always happen when you start something, right? I mean, it's all good.
Come here. It's okay. I'm still here.
Like, but mom's gone.
Well, she hasn't had a walk in 3 days,
Oh,
so she's not happy. But it's also 40 degrees Celsius here,
that's hot.
which I think is like 110 Fahrenheit or
Jesus.
something like that.
That's strange for like Canada. I mean, you know.
Not in summertime and where I live. It is.
Okay.
We can go up to 45 with Humidex. So what is 40 Celsius in Fahrenheit? Is 104 degrees Celsius Fahrenheit.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, and my dog is like a husky type dog, so it's just way too hot to take her for a walk.
Oh yeah, that'd be bad. She would be sweating bullets in just minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah, melting.
Yeah.
No good with melting dogs. Dogs don't melt well.
They don't.
And they're really difficult putting them back together too. You know,
Yeah, especially this one. There's so much fur. Getting it in the right places, it's just.
it would be horrible. It would be one of those puzzles like the games like Subliminal. Is that the one?
Superliminal.
Right?
Yeah.
Superliminal. It would be like that. It'd be like something inside there. You got the piece back together, a gooey dog,
Yeah.
and all the fur on it. Oh, that's not where the eye goes. Strange.
End up with a Picasso-looking dog.
It would be awesome.
I think it is becoming legal terroir where you are eventually, but again, anything that you do use, alcohol or cannabis, use it responsibly. We're not advocating going out and getting plastered. So, you wrote a book.
I did. It's pretty. I'm pretty shocked by it, to be honest with you. But this is the longest thing I've ever written in a very long time. But this was it took a long time. Let's just say that, several months. And but thanks to this pandemic, I was able to do it. So I was trapped inside, and man, took all the time I had and just wrote it. I even wrote it during work sometimes, but don't tell my boss or my wife. She'll be like, "Why are you writing the book during your work?"
And as a special surprise, we have Ted's boss joining us on the line.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I
Was
like
that the surprise question? I'm waiting. What does your boss think about you writing your book during your work day? Well, he probably is going to fire me, Travis. No.
This is your life, Ted, falling to pieces.
Oh my God. Yeah, that'd be horrible.
I have to say though, I love the fact you're like, it took me a long time. It took me a couple of months. I'm hitting my 1-year stream anniversary on Sunday, and I'm still on chapter 2 of the line of action on this.
But you did a lot of like outlining and planning. This is your book is a hell of a lot more complex than what. I mean, I have some level of complexity in this book. I mean, it's a mid-grade novel, but it's not it's not I don't want to say an adult novel because that always makes me feel like I'm talking about something,
Yeah,
like
how
adult
do we
related.
say that?
It's just a novel, a regular novel, I guess, right? It's just like
Yeah.
a normal novel, I think, right? So you've been working on one for 15 years. Oh, you don't want to hear it. Well, that's why you're writing it now, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Keep
and
going.
on a side note, a really quick side note, because I'm promising some people about this, I can finally now say that the latest update for Plotter has come out.
Oh,
It is fantastic, and I can say what I've been working on. So, and the new Plotter edition has a big overhaul of a lot of stuff. One of the things being is we've completely overhauled all of the templates built in. So now every single template has the same pattern. It looks the same all the way along. There's continuity along. And what I've been working so furiously on for the past little while is I rebuilt all the templates with my team, and I put the percentages are in there, Darius. If you take a look, there's now for each beat, each chapter, each scene, there's now instructions, an overview of what to do with it, bullet points on what to make sure to include in that section, and the percentage and
Nice.
the breakdown of how it's supposed to work. So I'll show after the interview. I'll show that later. But yeah,
Okay.
the new Plotter program is fantastic.
that looks like it's gonna be fun. You said there were some kids' books templates there too, right? Or is that not part of this update?
That's not now. There is some things that were
Did
possibly.
I just spoil it? I just spoiled it.
No,
didn't
there's
I?
some things we're possibly
Okay.
talking about. We're possibly looking at doing at some point down the road.
Okay.
But there's right now it's just been an overhaul of all the new or all the old structures and templates that were there. Like I said, they're always growing and adapting things, and this is one that I'm really proud of. I did a lot of hard work. I broke out a lot of things. I researched a lot of different writing outlines and stuff like that. And so I think anyone that's got Plotter, download the new update. You will be pleasantly surprised. And also, if you take a look at the video on that comes into the program for what the new update is that Stacy created, it explains there's a lot of new updates in this one. So that'll be very
Nice.
helpful to people. Yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, so back to your story. So what was the? No, Mr. Clippy. You've
Isn't
got your
that
first
sad though?
story.
I think Plotter would get sued if Mr. Clippy showed up though. Although that would be, like the old Word paperclip guy that would give you all the info and stuff. Yeah. Although they should create their own.
That's not a bad idea. A little plot outline that like unfurls. And like, do you want Freytag's pyramid? Do you want the 50 curve?
Ooh, this is a good idea. I like this.
There we go. This is little circle that just like breaks out into what you need. I gotta say though, Mr. Clippy got a bad rap. Everyone hates Mr. Clippy because he only showed up when you're at the peak level of stress in the document you were working
Yes,
on.
he would.
He
would
never
just show
popped
up
in to be like,
randomly.
"Hey,
It's
good
like-
job, Ted. You're doing great on this. You got this." It's like, "Oh, it looks like you're too stupid to figure out how to copy and paste. Do you want me to help you with that?"
Oh, I know. You just want to slap Mr. Slippy across the face. Although that would just mean you knocking your monitor on the floor, and then that's
then you
never
become a meme
good.
in a YouTube video. or-
Yeah. Well, back then there weren't memes, right? So I mean, that's. Or
Yeah.
you could be. You could have started the memes.
There you go. I think one of the first viral videos that I remember seeing is the some guy losing it at his workspace. He was at a workstation at work, and he started like hitting the computer or the keyboard and it wasn't working, so he ended up picking up the keyboard and like smashing the monitor with it, and he ends up throwing the monitor on the floor.
Did you notice that when he was smashing the monitor with the keyboard, that the keyboard was not connected?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, technically, neither is mine. I don't know if that was a thing back then, though.
No, back then it was definitely, you had to have your keyboard connected. There wasn't any like Bluetooth or anything like that. So the guy's problem, I used to work in service desk back in college, right? And we always had a saying that the problem existed between the table and chair, and which is the user. So it was I even had, there was at one point in time where they were, as my favorite service desk ticket, I always remember this, working there. It was a professor, because I was working at the college, and we got a ticket in, and they said that the professor's computer was locked and mooing. And they apparently had downloaded somehow a cow screensaver, and they forgot their password because they never locked their computers, and then it suddenly was locked, and the screensaver of the cow had popped up and was mooing at them, and they couldn't get it to stop. So it was brilliant. I loved it. I was like, wow, it's pretty amazing. I always remember that. It's always a fun one. So.
A friend of mine used to work in that, and he had two that just blew me away. And one was someone called the service center and said that their cup holder broke on their computer tower. And he's like, your cup holder? He's like, okay, well, that's not covered with warranty. Cup holders aren't standard with a computer. What like convention did you go to pick this up? They're like, no, it came with my computer. So after a bit of argument, the person said, no, you hit a button and the cup holder slides out. The CD-ROM. The other one was the one who called in screaming that her new program wasn't working. And she's like, it's not working. He's like, okay, what'd you do? And she just kept screaming, it's not working. It's not working. Like, you need to fix this. It's not working. This is terrible. So finally, he calmed her down. He's like, listen. He's like, what steps have you done so far? And this is actually a guy that got fired, because I just remembered the thing that he did for getting fired. So she said that she took the package and she put it on top of her computer tower. And he's like, okay. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, ma'am, it doesn't go in through osmosis. You have to install the program for it to run. You can't just put it on your computer and have it work. But there's another guy that called in. This is the last computer tech thing I'll say, because we're on a bit of a tangent. But
it's okay.
Some guy called in and said, my upset because his computer wasn't working. So he's like, well, like, if you troubleshot a bunch of things, and he's like, have you, guy's like, it's just a black screen, it's not working, I can't get it to work. And he's like, have you tried, like, is it plugged in? He's like, yes, it's plugged in. And he's like, okay. And he's like, can you check all the cables, make sure the cables are connected properly? This is after like 45 minutes on the phone with this guy.
Right.
And the guy's like, well, from what I can see, the cables are connected. And he's like, okay, can you look at the back of the computer? Are all the cables connected properly at the back? And it's like, well, I have to go get a flashlight. Why do you need a flashlight? Well, so I can see the back of the computer. And he's like, well, can you just not pull it out? And he's like, yeah, but my power is out, so I don't have any lights. So my friend's response was, okay, I know what you need to do. And he's like, I figured out the problem. He's like, you need to take your computer, take it apart. Do you still have the box that it came in? Yes. Put all the components back in the box that you have, bring it back to the computer store. And the guy's like, really, is that serious? And he's like, yes. And it's like, when you get there, tell them the problem is you're too fucking stupid to own a computer.
Is that the reason why he got fired?
Yeah, he got fired from that one. That was his breaking point.
Power's out. That's great. Yeah. Oh man, I can't. Yeah, there were some really, really classic ones, but my favorite one was the cow. I was like, can't pass. I couldn't. We actually printed it out, put it on a wall. We had a wall of just stupid requests from professors. It was great.
Nice, that's awesome.
It was pretty awesome. So yeah, we did get off on a tangent, but I live in tangent world. So, and then eventually I get back to reality where it's not in tangent, and eventually I get to tangent world again. I visit often. It is my life.
It's a lovely place, and they've got great scotch and beer. So
they do, and it always helps the tangents run longer.
Exactly. The idiot error. So your book is The Tales of Galdonia. So how did you Tangent World. There we go. We'll get on that, Bill.
Yes,
That
it
might
should
be
be
one
a
of the
t-shirt.
first Scribe's Journey T-shirts.
I like it. It
Tangent
should be.
World. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a note of that. So what is the so how did you? So some of you that attended our first podcast live recording may have heard a little bit of Ted's story already, but for those of you who weren't there, and shame on you for not being there, what is your story? What was the inspiration for your story, and what is it about?
Well, my son is 6, and he's suddenly quiet. So that's either good or bad. But a few years ago, maybe about 3, I created this random bedtime story, and it's pretty quick, right? I can tell the whole thing within a minute without even going off on a tangent. So it was literally about a mouse and a dragon, and the dragon was talking with the mouse, and he said, "You should really learn how to fly." And the mouse was like, "Oh, okay." But he looks over one shoulder, he looks over the other shoulder, and he looks at the dragon. It's like, "But I don't have wings." So the dragon's like, "Oh, don't worry." Right. And I did a whole, there was a whole, animated me dancing around the room, flying around the room like a dragon after the dragon picked him up, put him on his shoulder, and they flew off to have a picnic. Now, this is a story I told a 3-year-old, and I started looking at it and thinking, well, how would this mouse actually fly? And that was my first question I asked myself. And after that, it just turned into, oh, he's an inventor. He loves, he's got a friend who's a dragon, but how big is this dragon? Because dragons are giant. So I said, well, the dragon's the size of a house cat, right? So it just kind of exploded and went from there to there to there. And I sat down and outlined, which is the second book in this picture book series, basically the story that I told my son, but more words, more story, more interesting. Shows his process of inventing and everything. But that's how it all started. Me telling this story to my son, who loved it, and every single night it was just me talking about the mouse and the dragon flying around the room like an idiot, with my arms like wings, and But that's what dads do sometimes, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, and after I wrote the first book, I actually realized that, oh, well, this is not how they met. So I should write another book that comes before it. So I wrote a second one about how they met. And from there, it kind of expanded into this entire 5-book epic picture book series that I went and talked to someone, an agent once about, and I told her how I described it was Tolkien for toddlers. And she was like, that is actually really a great way to describe. I was like, yes, I'm going to coin that right now, because, and that's I didn't do it, unfortunately. But I mean, it's anyway, that's how it started. It was from a bedtime story I told my son. So.
That's fantastic. So is this as we know, there's a variety of levels of story. So actually, that's one thing I'll ask is, there are a variety of levels for kids' books. So, we were talking before, and you mentioned the fact that in writing for children, there are different genres. So how do the genres for children's books actually work? How does that break down?
Well, it's strange because when you ask someone what genre a kids book author what genre they write in, they write the kids book classification, right? So you have what's the board books, right, which are very small. Then you have picture books, which is the second after that, right? My son's yelling my name, Dad, but I can't answer him because it's okay. He'll be fine. He'll either pass out from yelling way too much or whatever. I don't know. Or my wife will get it. She's probably missed the hour. It's fine. So picture books are about maximum about 1,000 words. That's the next step up from board books, right? And generally, you're the ones reading it to your kids, but the age range for picture books goes up until 7 years old. And the reason why that age range is 7 years old is because when kids are starting to learn how to read, that's where they pick it up, and so they can pick up the first books, and they probably will flip through each one of those. Man, he's singing in there. And so we'll read those first, right? I mean, they won't go on to harder books. The classic loud single. Yes, that's what's happening right now, Bill. You can't hear it. Or maybe you can.
I don't think it's coming through.
Oh, good.
My little one's back as well. She doesn't have the dad yet. She just has the shriek at the top of her lungs.
Yes, which is always good. But like the classifications keep going up and the words keep going. Obviously, as you keep going up, the word count keeps going up. Like there's chapter books which range between 6,000 and 8,000 words. There are mid-grade novels, which is what I wrote for the first book, the Tales of Gadania. And which, by the way, kudos to you for pronouncing it right. I tried to write it phonetically, and it was one of those things where I was like, this should be easy for kids to say, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with it, right? So, but then mid-grade novels go from around, I guess, 20,000 to 30,000 words to 50,000 plus, and then YA, which goes from that 50,000 to 70,000 plus, right? So, but yeah, that most of the time, if you ask a children's book author what genre they write, they do it by that classification. They won't say sci-fi, fantasy, whatnot. Those are all subcategories of these kids books genres. So, which is interesting.
That makes sense. So that's so with me pronouncing it right, you're saying that I'm as smart as a child.
No, I wasn't saying that. Definitely smarter than that. No, I was just like, because I wanted to make it easy for kids to say, and it tells me that I actually did a good job getting that out there for, so that phonetically people can just say, look at him saying Galdania, perfect, and I was like, yes, that means it worked.
Yeah, and then there's the line of Archinomus, which is always like that line of arc something that you're writing.
Well, adults are reading that, right? So they have no excuse, right? So I mean, they should be able to pronounce this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I mean that's how it is. So, I mean, but you don't see a lot of like romance kids books. So you'll get like the sci-fi, you'll get the fantasy, in this genre, maybe some mystery, but never any romance, because that's a little weird. Well, maybe in YA you'll have that. I think once you get to a young adult version, like classification, and even I would guess mid-grade, right? There's a little clearer of a novel classification for genre, right?
Yeah.
In those books, but below that, it's very vague.
And I think that with that too, the amount of pictures and the size of pictures kind of decrease as you go up through the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, picture books are just full of it, and as like you said, as you go up through the ranks of those genres, the pictures get less complex. I mean, less complex as you go up to it, right? And once you get to YA, there aren't any pictures at all in there. Like I talked to an artist friend of mine just recently, and I said it's not the same artist that I got to do some of the artwork for my character concepts, but another artist just to do some black and white stuff, because I originally was going to mid-grade because I thought, oh, they don't have any pictures in it, and I realized after I picked it up, started reading, it's like, shit. So I still got to pay for artwork.
But mid-grade only has a few pictures, though. It's not like you get a picture on every second page. It's just every once in a while there's a picture thrown in, or for like a chapter heading or something. It's
like one chapter, at the top of the chapter there might be something that's going on in the scene in the book in that chapter, or it might be in the middle of it, but there's only one small little black and white. So I only have to pay for 19 small black and white pictures, but still, it's not like a picture book size stuff. That's expensive.
But I mean, to be fair, Dragonlance novels, Wheel of Time novels, Wheel of Time just had a little icon for each chapter heading. Dragonlance novels had artwork scattered throughout. with them.
Really?
Yeah,
Did it?
they
Oh,
did.
I
Not
have
a
Dragon's
lot,
novel.
but there would be a few. Nice. Legend of
This
Huma.
one,
I love that one.
I can't. This is the only one that survived from my parents' house, and man, because I don't remember the artwork scattered through this, but we're gonna see.
Not all of them did, but some of them did. I
Oh,
remember.
no, there it is. They had some swords in here. I lost it. I don't know where it is. Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I see it. I see him in here.
And
I
occasionally
just
the
keep
chapter
flipping
headings would
by.
have a picture. I remember with the Silver Dragon Silvara, there was a picture of her bathing in the moonlight.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's not the coolest picture that I
Yeah.
could find, but yeah, right at chapter top,
Yeah,
at
stuff
the
like
top
that.
of the chapter. Yeah, and I think I'll probably end up doing the same thing. I guess that's a good one. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just the only one that survived from my parents' house. I think my mom thought Dungeons and Dragons were satanic, so she threw out all my old stuff, and I was like, "Ooh, why did you do that?"
Hey, my mom
So
was the
I
same
know.
way. It was but I mean, that was, we're both old enough to have gone through the Satanism craze in the 1980s.
Yes, but
And that was, a
yeah,
lot of it was tied to Dungeons and Dragons.
was it really though?
The fables around it. Like the one big
Oh,
story that came out, I think it was actually on Unsolved Mysteries or Rescue 911, or one of those shows that was like that, was about these guys that were supposedly playing Dungeons and Dragons, and went they kept getting more and more involved in the game, and then it would get to the point where they'd be at a bar and they would gain experience points if they hit on the waitress or if they did something else. And then it got to the point where they started doing real life quests, and one of the quests was to go kill one of the guy's parents. So they went and they murdered his parents as part of the game, and it was all tied back to this whole satanic thing. Like it was a thing. There was a lot of people that believed that Dungeons and Dragons would drive children and teenagers to murder and all this stuff. So my mom was the same way. I wasn't allowed to listen to Twisted Sister. I wasn't allowed to listen to, or to for the longest time I couldn't watch any of that stuff. Dragonlance was okay. I don't think she quite drew the connection
right.
to that, but it was just more
Well, that's
fantasy.
good.
Yeah, Bill
Yeah.
remembers that. Yeah, it was a time. There was also, I mean, it was around the same time that all the kids were disappearing in the white vans.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and like the creepy like clown, like not Pennywise, but like the actual, clown that was stealing kids and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure. Just definitely hydrate with your scotch. I mean, come on. That's the way it should be.
Hail Hydrate. So with kids books, there's a lot of, and I have to say, I've noticed doing this has made me pick up on a few mannerisms that I have, and one I picked up on that absolutely drives me nuts is I have picked up somewhere along the way this horrible habit of saying "so" to start things. Like, so as you know, if you pay attention, chat and Ted, I say "so" way too many times. At any
Really?
rate, yeah. Children's books or kids' books tend to have, as we all know, it's considered the rule of three. Excuse me. So if the main character is trying to solve a problem, they usually have one of three failed attempts before they get to the climactic actual attempt that kind of solves that through. And you can't make the crises too difficult for children because it's a kid's book, and they don't understand the same weight of things. And it's generally not going to be saving the world as one of the issues that the people have taken care of, especially in the younger books. As you get older, into older grade novels like yours, it does become a little bit more of solving. I just got banned of solving the larger scale problems. So there we go. So I just have to reset that clock on that share. Within your book, have you followed the rule of three with that? And what kind of problems do you have I mean, it's not a hard, fast rule. That can be a little bit less or a little bit more than that. But and what kind of level of problems is your protagonist trying to solve in the story?
Well, I mean, originally I wrote this. I mean, I'll take a step out. Originally, I started writing this because I was going to do a podcast of it, and so I wrote it. And the most of the story structure is episodic, right? And so each, and I even wrote the outline out as like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it was it kind of falls in line with that what you were talking about, and I forget what that plot structure you sent me was.
Oh, the Fichtean curve.
Yeah, where it had several different challenges. It builds up to the climax, and then it comes, just goes soaring down. So a lot of it, since this mid grade novel that I'm writing, I'm editing, is more like an Indiana Jones adventure. So when you think about Indiana Jones, he and his companion at the time will go through and face one challenge and find something that leads him to somewhere else. So they face another challenge and they find something else that leads them that. It's a quest, right? They're finding clues that leads them to the next part of the quest up until the point where they find the golden idol that makes the giant ball chase them down out of the ruins, right? Or the Ark of the Covenant, where it's you have to wait until all the crazy Germans in World War II where it gets sucked their life back into the box. But so I mean, gradually the challenges gets a little bit more difficult as it goes along. But I think the challenge for me was, and I still plan on producing it as a podcast for free too. So it's just one of those things where now I have to look at it, since it's gone from what my expectations originally were, 25,000 words, to over 50,000 words. I have to now figure out where the logical breaks are if I'm still going to produce it as a podcast. Do I still do 5 episodes? It might be an hour long each, or can I break that up? But I mean, it does follow that curve that you were talking about before, where it builds up slowly and slowly. But it was unintentional. Like I didn't even know about that until you sent it to me, to be honest with you. I mean, I have this one book here. Oh, and just real quick, I'll show you the other book that I have, that we both have.
Nice.
Plot and structure. But
I was gonna say, I think your Monsters book is hardcover, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's softcover as well. But in that plot and structure series, there's an entire dialogue, description, character, emotion, viewpoint, revising and self-editing series that goes along with that. And I bought all these all at once years ago. And you can tell that they were really well used because the bindings haven't even looked like they've been broken yet. So
well, you're just like me. I refuse to break the bindings of books. Yeah, I go as far as I can. Where
thank you.
If I'm reading a book, I will actually take the book and go like this. So I will hold the book like this to ensure that I'm not breaking the binding. I'll actually pinch it between my fingers and make sure it stays smooth.
Yeah, I don't. That's just because of the lack of use, unfortunately. So, but I mean, this is one of the books that I have that kind of that gives you really good quick outlines of different plot structures. And I was going through it and it's like, well, how am I going to do this? And I realized, oh, right, this is what I'm writing is more serial. It's episodic. So that's where it kind of came. And if you listen to any serial type radio programs or watch any serial type shows, they always, up to the main part, it kind of gets in the same type of curve that you had pyramid, as you said. So it just naturally fell into it, but originally I was doing more of an episodic.
Well, and that's one of the things that I recommend to people, and with that is that, I mean, I guess you can take the Fichtean curves and use each crisis or each challenge that they face as one episode for that. There's the baby back.
Love your baby, man. Your baby's great.
But that's one of the things I recommend to people is to, even if you're a pantser and you don't like to plot that much, when you're done your story, your first draft, go back and look at it and hold it up to different outlines, different plot structures, and see, because, and that was the thing, is that I realized doing the work that I do, I've looked back at some of the stories I wrote and I was like, there were some of these plot structures templates I had to design for a plotter, and going through them, I was like, oh, I don't know if I've really heard of this one before. And I've researched it and kind of learned what I could and built out the plot structure. And then I'd look at it and be like, oh, actually, no, this story I wrote falls into this plot structure perfectly. So it's amazing that once you have an idea of how the different plot structures work, when you hold your story up to it, you can be like, actually, it doesn't fit the hero's journey, but it fits the fiction's curve really well. And yeah, I've naturally hit those plot points. And I think that's something that as a writer, I'm not saying don't plot. I'm not saying don't outline, don't research. I just bought tons of books. But when you write a lot of stories, or when you're a storyteller, naturally you kind of understand what works and what doesn't work, and you begin to pick up on how a story flows, how a story should flow.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sent me that one too, because like I was just thinking, it's like, well, I'm just gonna kind of go with it, but it kind of validates my, the way that I had unexpectedly, outlined it and wrote it, right. And I think you're right. I think our minds when we're writing things or outlining, or even if you're pantsing it, which I'm not a natural pantser unless it's something that it's just trapped in my head and I need to go, right. I generally plot out things and keep myself organized and get things going, because otherwise I would go off on random tangents like I always do. But it's, I think when you write, sometimes there are so many plot outlines that are out there that something has to fit, right? I think something most likely fits, what you're writing. And yes, Tyrell, the old time radio dramas.
Yes, I saw you were doing that last night. I was caught up with dealing with everything that was happening, and that really disappointed me, because when I used to do private policing, there was for the longest time I was working overnights, so from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. And there was this radio channel where I live that would play after midnight. They would play these old-timey things. So I'd be driving around listening to The Shadow and listening to all these old radio plays. And it was probably the favorite part of my job, was when it was a quiet night and I could just sit there and listen to these radio plays and dramas as I drove around.
Yeah, it was fun last night. It was the first time we're doing it. We're going to do it every Wednesday, I think. And there are so many of those things. We did listen to an episode of Shadow last night, but we did listen. We got really in depth into Captain Cole and Happy of Space Patrol.
Nice.
We had to listen to 2 episodes. We wanted to know why Happy was charging a building, and man, it was dramatic.
That is a great idea. That's something that, like, I don't know how you come up with that concept, but that is absolutely fantastic.
I gave you 100% credit, right? Because it was you that gave me the idea, because you were doing the old time movies once a month, and I was like, that's such a cool idea. I was like, I cannot take that do the same thing, And I was looking at all the movies that are out there. I was like, no. I got to figure out something else. And then I realized that, since I'm working on this podcast and like the codename Space Trash, which is another series I'm going to start outlining and start writing, fits really well with inside a podcast. I was like, well, you know what? I wonder. I said, well, I wonder if like H.G. Wells stuff was, like the War of the Worlds. Mm-hmm. So I went and looked up the 1953. It was 1945, 1943. I don't know, whatever. War of the Worlds broadcast, and I was like, oh wow, oh, and this is totally public domain right now. And then all these other things started popping up. I was like, oh, ooh, Space Patrol, never heard it, but gonna listen to it. The Shadow, we know, right? So yeah, I was like, all right. So I made some icons, and I did some artwork, and I made myself black and white, and I thought that was fun. So it's just like every week we'll listen to 2 or 3 episodes of these things, and next week I got to listen to the next episode of Space Patrol to find out what happens to the planet, to the Pluto city.
Nice.
Who knows if it's going to survive? Might not survive.
Does the Shadow know?
No, Shadow, unfortunately, is not involved in it, but he would know. But I swear, there's someone. We were listening to this program last night, and it was talking about the Shadow, and it said that Bill and Sam and Tyrell, you guys were there with me. Like, I swear, I heard them say that the biggest flaw in the Shadow's ability to go invisible, which is actually hypnosis, by the way, is that he keeps getting shot. And I'm like, well, that means your ability to hypnotize people is not as impressive as you think it is, and you probably should do something else. I mean, you would think after the second time he gets shot, you'd be like, yeah, maybe I should not try that.
So is he at like the level of Drax, the Destroyer from the Guardians of the Galaxy? It was like, I've mastered the ability of standing so still, no one can see me.
Well,
We can see you, Drax.
the thing, yeah, I know, almost. I think almost, but like the Shadow has the ability to hypnotize people to convince them that he's not there.
Nice.
But apparently, it doesn't work 100% all the time. So,
it works 100% of the time, 50% of the time.
Absolutely.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 is amazing. I absolutely love it. My brother was a huge backer when they were trying to bring it back. I'm not sure how much money he donated to it, but I know he really jumped in on the donation train for that. There are just some things that stand out, like that Mystery Science Theater 3000, and for me, again, still one of my favorite old-timey... it's not really old-timey. One of my favorite older series is Red Dwarf.
Oh my God.
Absolutely fantastic. Like the other night...
Special place in my heart.
Yeah, the other night we had Vindaloo, and I'm like, I have to have a beer. Like, I have to have you can't have Vindaloo without beer. I'm like, that.
No. And especially since it came in those gray cans that and kept hiding. Rimmer kept hiding all the cigarettes and all the beer and all the stuff that Lister loved.
Yeah.
And that was a great series. It was one of those things where I remember watching it when like as a kid, BBC we would only get BBC shows at random, right? So every season was like 2 years later. But I remember watching all of them, gradually as a kid on like PBS, and in the U.S. and like the public service broadcasting station, whatever, right? So, but yeah, they have a new season that's out, and I have not seen it.
Neither have I.
But man, they're fucking old looking, aren't they? I mean, God, Lister is still not got Kachansky. Right. And it's...
Well, one of the things I loved about this was that, so when I was growing up, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, like just my entire family, I kind of broke the trend because I'm just busy with stuff, but they always watched Coronation Street. This British soap opera drama thing that had very iconic music at the beginning, and every Sunday morning I'd wake up and I'd wake up to the tune of Coronation Street, and I'd go running upstairs to watch it with my mom. And it's one of those things where they would do like 4 half-hour episodes, or then 5 half-hour episodes throughout the week, and then they'd play them all back-to-back on Sunday, so like 2.5 hours of Coronation Street.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, but Lister ended up joining Coronation Street. So the final episode of Mystery Science Theater, or of Red Dwarf, they actually land on Earth, and he lands on Coronation Street.
Yes,
and then he goes out, and then Lister ends up joining that cast.
Of that other season before the final season, because they came back for another one.
Yeah,
and it's but no, I remember that was great, and because I think he was on there for such a long time.
He was. Yeah, I've been watching a while, but yeah.
And then he I don't know I don't know if he left it. Not that I've ever seen the show, because I don't think we get that here.
It's got really good storytelling. Yeah, Darius. Ken and Deirdre are worldwide. We watched up until a few years ago. I used to watch it religiously, and it was on Sunday. So, nice. But it was it's huge. Coronation Street is absolutely huge. I think it's the world's longest running soap opera.
Really?
And it's been around for a very long time, and they've done and when they did stuff, they did it real. There was one episode I think in the 70s or 80s where I think it was actually Ken and Deirdre's apartment caught on fire, and they actually lit the set on fire. So when they were running out to leave, they were going through real smoke to try to get out of the set. It was pretty cool.
Well, I guess if you're not going to use that set ever again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they
might as well just burn it to the ground. I mean,
yeah. But it was really well done, and I absolutely geeked out as when I saw that. One, that it was Lister that was on the show, and the fact that the tie-in and all that stuff was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that was funny. It was a good one.
It was. But yeah, I haven't seen the new series, which I definitely have to. See Ian McKellen. Well, no, that's it. Like that was actually when I was an actor and a model. That was one of my things. I actually wanted to act on uh, Coronation Street because there was a couple of Canadian actors that went and joined the street over time. Hey, LJ is joining us. There is no raid warning sound. There is none of that fun stuff because it deafens everybody because I haven't figured out how to turn it down without muting it. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome, LJ. Thank you for joining us. We're on a bit of a tangent, but we're having a great conversation.
I'm always on a tangent, so it's my life.
And actually, in LJ, we have the first T-shirt for the Scribe's Journey, which is Tangent World, because we just keep going on tangents.
Yes, so. It should be it will be a thing.
It will be a thing.
I'll have to design that.
Yes. But so, anyways, back to the idea of story structure. That is something that you can do. Is definitely make each crisis kind of one thing that's there. You love your backgrounds. Thank you, Alviandra. How are you tonight?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had to do something. It was just a blank wall, so I put all my '80s gear up there. I have a He-Man. It's over here. I have a He-Man. I could point right there. You go. Lunchbox right there, and He-Man's up here somewhere, I think. Nice. But you can't see him because he's blocked by a shit ton of books. So
one of my coolest things that I've seen that I have that you can't even see is this. My wife has thrown this out 3 times. So I put it into a box. I'm like, stop throwing it out.
What is it?
But it's a piece of stone from Pompeii.
Nice.
Yeah, I was at an exhibit and I was talking to at a museum and I was talking to one of the curators, and they had like small chunks of pumice stone from Pompeii, and I ended up, through conversation, I ended up getting a small piece of one. And so when my wife and I first met, she'd be like doing cleaning and stuff, and she'd throw it out. I'm like, where's that white rock? She's like, oh, I threw it out. I'm like, it's not garbage. Like, it's a piece of history.
Like, well, we went to Italy once. We went to Italy. We were there for like 2 weeks. We were in Rome and we were in Florence, and we were just wandering around the Colosseum, and there was this loose piece of stone that was in the wall, and I was like, so no, don't mind me, but I have a sand collection downstairs. It's in my living room, and up there is like this little chunk of that Colosseum. And years ago, someone actually gave me a piece of the Berlin Wall. Wow. which to me, it has all the graffiti on it anywhere and everything. He was over there during the time when they were in the 80s, where they were cracking it open, and he had tons of chunks he brought home. And my friend knew that I love to collect like historical and sand, rocks, and she was like, well, would you like a one of the Berlin Wall? I was like, yeah, I'll take that, sure. But in reality, I don't know if they say it's part of the Berlin Wall, right? I trust him that it is a Berlin Wall, but who knows? It might just be something from like Trenton, New Jersey. I
imagine it probably is. I mean, there was a lot of chunks came down from there.
Yeah.
And that's actually funny because my wife was born in Krakow, Poland, and in 1987 her family came from Poland to Canada because communism was never going to fall. The Berlin Wall was never going to come down. Like 2 years later, the wall came down. They're like, damn it. But I mean, to be fair, it's still not the greatest political situation over there. Yes, Tara, thank you. I love my loading screen. I do try to make things calming. And LJ, you are definitely going to have to. That's, I think, our next podcast when we're talking about the hero's journey. We're going to have to tell us about your journey into the Vatican.
Now, did you see? LJ, did you see the necropolis down below the Vatican when you were there? There's a necropolis. My uncle actually is in the FBI, or was in the FBI years ago, and when we went over to Italy that time, we went to go visit the Vatican, and he knew some guys that worked on the Vatican police force. So my cousin, who was 16 at the time, he said, Megan, go talk to this guy, go find him, ask him for his name and by name, and give him this. He had like like FBI swag, and he got us to like a private tour of the necropolis in the Vatican, which was pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
There was this big hole in the wall that you could see through, and apparently it was like, I'm not religious, so I'm going to screw this up. So it was one of the apostles of Jesus. I can't remember which one it was, but it's like his resting place that you could only see in this area. I was like, well, okay then, that's kind of cool. But
I think that was Dave, the apostle.
Probably Dave. Yeah, the apostle Dave. He was always the drunk one on the wine, wasn't he? He was the one who. He's the guy that was. Damn it, Dave! What's wrong with you? Stop drinking all the holy wine. Stop giving Jesus that jug of water. You know he can't stop from turning that into wine. So sacrilegious.
I was gonna say, interview with a site of sacrilege.
Oh my god, that's amazing! I have to. Wow, I feel like that's a Monty Python like bit right there. Someone keeps handing Jesus bottles of water, and then another person keeps taking it, and then they keep getting drunk off it because it keeps turning it to wine.
That was actually a meme I saw that I really liked, and it was Jesus.
Oh, was it?
And close to that, but it was Jesus and all the apostles going out for dinner, and the waiter come by and he's like, "Just 12 waters, please."
That's awesome. I like that. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Oh. All right. Sorry. On a tangent again.
Yeah.
And a little bit sacrilegious.
That's all right. I'm not the most religious person either, so. The 12
waters. Yeah, I know.
But I think these are the experiences that as writers that we kind of we hold on to, and memories that we have. Like that was the thing with my mom has this thing of anytime we're at a museum, she has to touch stuff. So all the stuff you're not allowed to touch, she has to touch. And so there was this one, actually I think it was from the Palm Bay exhibit. There was like this bed that was in Palm Bay. And there's like all the ropes around it. So she leans across and she's like, touch. So I yelled at her for that. I'm like, do you realize the oils from your hands can actually severely damage the wood? Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
And then on the same trip, or at a different trip, we're seeing the Queen's portraits. And my sister happened, like the guardrail was here. And my sister like leaned like this. And like 3 guards came running over to her. They're like, stay behind the line. She's like, okay. Whereas my mom's on the other side going, touch, touch, touch.
My God.
Isn't that bit in the life of Brian? I'm not sure.
I'll have to watch that again because I don't remember, but it should be. If it's not, then it should be.
Yeah. My wife and I have tons of Monty Python jokes that we go through all the time. We actually have 2 penguins on the back of our couch because my daughter loves penguins. So that's where every once in a while I'll be like, hey, like, it's now 10 p.m. It's time for the penguin on the top of your couch to explode.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Actually, speaking of which, my daughter has this new thing where she's starting to realize stuff. So today she spent 10 minutes with me holding the penguin in front of her, and she would lean back, lean forward, lick across the penguin's face, lean back, lean forward, lick across the penguin's face for like 10 minutes.
She's licking the penguin's face?
She's licking the penguin. I'm like, what? Because my wife had to go to my mother-in-law's to do laundry today. I'm like, did you break our daughter while you were gone? Like, she's coming back and just licking a penguin.
Kids are great. Like there was a point in time, especially it's always good when they finally learn not to lick random shit. Because there was a one point in time my wife was flying out to Colorado to visit my in-laws, and one of the things that happened was that my son leaned forward. This is way before the pandemic, right? So leaned forward and licked the seat in front of him.
Oh no.
Well, lo and behold, they were out there in Colorado for like 2-3 weeks. For 1 week of that, he had the worst, like he was just sick.
Yeah.
All get go. And as soon as he did it, she was like, okay, yeah. She knew what was coming because planes are just dirty as hell.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, she brings she used to. Well, now he's 6. If he licks something that's not, it's not like if it's in a plane, I'm gonna be like, I'm not taking care of you.
Yeah.
Go over there, right?
You're
So,
in the
but
basement for a week by yourself.
yeah, seriously,
Alejandra,
I know.
thank you very much for the follow. Thank you for coming through. Enjoy your dinner.
Switch
Enjoy.
cartridge to lick next. Give her a switch cartridge to lick
See, I,
next.
I haven't convinced myself to buy a Switch yet, so I can't do that. But there's
No one should
actually a
lick
video.
anything electrical.
Yeah, my wife just showed me a video of someone left their toddler in like I think a year or two in a shopping cart, and the kid just like leans forward to lick the shopping cart handle, and you see the parents just like put their hand out and like hit the kid in the head. Like, nope.
Real fast. My friend Scott is watching. Scott, you're watching Twitch. It's amazing that you're on. How are you, man? He just texted me. He's like, "What am I watching?" I'm like, "Well,
Welcome, Scott.
welcome." We're talking about the book I finished writing, but I keep putting us on tangents, and you know how that goes. So, it's my fault. But you talked about how the things that we experienced kind of relate. You kind of bring that in your books.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get myself back on topic, because one of the things, I was mentioning how in the Vatican we had that private tour in the Acropolis down there, and that place is always like kind of stuck with me. So I actually added an Acropolis to this book, and one of the places they end up going to is this under the city of Graywell. There's an old necropolis that no one realizes that was there, and that's the similar thing that happened to the Vatican, right? They literally built the Vatican on top of the area the necropolis used to be. Dug it, they buried it all in, and then they had built the Vatican on top of it. But that always stuck with me, and I was like thinking to myself, this would be kind of a cool concept to throw in there, that underneath this old city of Graywell is this necropolis, from the Roman influence that they had from the Roman occupation in the area of the world that this is that this book is kind of based in an alternate universe. But yeah, it's very those experiences do kind of stick with you, and that's probably one of the reasons why I put that in there, because they didn't realize that was there underneath the necropolis for years, and then they started excavating it and opening up areas, so
That was something that actually occurred to me when you said that you had this tour of the necropolis. Because I remember there was that point in one of your streams where you were talking about how did they get out of this thing, and I remember chatting with you about that.
yeah.
And I drew that connection as well. I was going to say, like, that's probably why you had this connection into it, and it is. So what you're saying though is that even in an alternate universe, the Romans still took over everything.
Yeah, no, the Romans didn't take over everything. Actually, in this alternate universe, the Boudica rebellion. So if you go back in history, look at the British history, right? The Romans occupied the Britain up until a certain point, and there was one rebellion that the Celts actually were able to organize themselves into, and it failed. And Boudica was a Celtic priestess who kind of ran this and kind of grouped everybody together. And once she was caught and killed, it was over, right? But what I ended up doing was taking, being Irish like I am, I was like, I'm not gonna let this die. And so I ended up getting to the point where she actually was killed, but someone else kind of picked up the mantle and then drove the Romans out. So, and it actually ended in the final battle ended in the city of Dubras, which is actually the Latin name for Dover. So and Dubras actually in Dover in England, it actually has a little connection in the book as well. That's one of the first places they go to in this book as the first challenge, as that ascending, challenges that they have to deal with, and all the things they go through. I don't want to ruin it. I mean, but I mean, I can go into more details as you want. So, but yeah,
You gotta save some for a surprise. But yeah, Tara, you're right. Watching the babies learn how to do stuff is absolutely amazing. Until they get to the point where they become fixated on it and lose their mind constantly when you won't let them do it. That part's a little frustrating.
yeah.
And
Sometimes that doesn't end. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the
That's a,
problem that we're facing now is that my daughter is too young to be sitting up by herself, but she is. And she's too young to be able to stand, like to push herself into standing with assistance, but she does. So now all she wants to do is sit by herself and stand. And it's like, you can't do that. You keep following it like you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing right now. And so she'll just fuss and scream if you won't let her try to do this stuff. So
I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm so glad.
yeah,
It is.
I go through phases where I'm like, you know what, it'd be nice maybe for her to have like a sibling to kind of keep her company. And then there's days where I'm like, no. One is good. One is.
Yeah,
like McLean, I'm too old for this
There's
crap.
benefits. Yeah, there's benefits and downsides to it, right? Like I have a sister, and she's just, I hate to say it, but it'd be a lot easier if I was an only child. So, but anyway,
Yeah,
regardless of that thought,
exactly.
you know, yeah,
But yeah, so there's with this book, 3 was it for you? That's impressive.
three. Couldn't even
That's
deal
a
with,
lot.
hardly deal with one. God bless your soul,
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, no. So you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, and on as part of that side tangent is because I broke my foot trying to run the other day, or a while ago, I I went finally and I bought a pair of shoes on the weekend. I bought a pair of running shoes. And we were going through, I was like, I'm going to get Nikes. Like, I got a nice pair of Adidas for just loafers, but then I got a pair of running shoes. And, like, I was looking at Nikes, I was looking at all these really nice shoes, but none of them really kind of fit what I needed. So finally, I was talking to the guy and we explained my issues with my spinal cord damage and stuff like that. And then he brought out this pair of shoes that were really light, really awesome, really comfortable, great support, fantastic. I'm like, I didn't even look at the price. I'm like, going to buy those. I bought them. I brought them home. I opened the box. I looked at them again. I'm like, I bought a pair of New Balance. And I don't know if you've seen it or not, but that's the ongoing joke is that all dads wear New Balance shoes. Once you
No,
become a
I didn't know
father, you
that.
wear New Balance.
I did not know that. I don't actually own a pair of New Balance. I may have like before I was a dad, but like I don't own one now. So
Yeah.
that's a new one. I didn't hear that. I've never heard that joke before.
But these aren't the white New Balance shoes. These are the good ones.
Okay.
LJ, thanks for coming through. I'm sorry your internet is flaking out on you. Have a great night. I appreciate you being here. Oh yeah, I just realized I don't have my backlight on.
I have it all. I control it all from my phone. I have like 3 light bulbs that are Bluetooth, and then that little green thing that glows everything in the background. It's really dark.
But what actually I might do is, nah, that's not helping. At any rate, the so you've done draft 1, and kind of like we discussed through accident. Through me sending you the Fichtean curve, you kind of ended up holding your draft up and realizing it fits into this. But like we talked about before...
Thank you.
Anytime. But like we talked about before, is you don't... When you're writing a series, not all books in the series have to follow the same outline and the same template. You can have one that follows Fichtean curve, you can have another one that follows Freytag's pyramid, another one that follows a mystery outline. You can switch it up and keep it interesting for your readers. Obviously, you don't want to go too excessive because then it becomes confusing and you lose the sense of what the story is, and you can lose everything that way. But so this first book is done the first draft. You've kind of held it up to an outline that you've realized, and now you're going back. So what is your second round of editing? Are you going back now and filling in holes that need to be filled in, or are you starting your actual content and line editing, or what's the next step for you on this?
I'm going through. I made notes as I was going through the book and realizing that there was a lot of detail needed to be added in here. There were certain points where there was information that I realized that if I just kind of sat and stared at, that I would never get it done because it would take me like a week to choose a name of a character. So I put a lot of placeholders in it, and slowly but surely, we did it on a Twitch stream the other night, last week I think. We filled in some of those holes. I realized that I needed to do some more research on what one of the towns was going to look like, so we did a little bit of that the other night. But in reality, it's just kind of going back and seeing what works. And I always knew we were talking about the other day, you and I, about and even on the podcast that we do, that that the first line of the book is, or even the first few lines of the book is very important. And I remember when I was halfway through this and I printed this out, I was reading through it. I looked at it. I was like, ooh, yeah, this sucks. So that was the first thing I did. The first thing I edited from page one is I took and expanded out, added details for the character, showing parts of her life within the first 3 paragraphs to kind of, make it easier for the readers to understand that she is the mouse, that she lives in a city, that she is an adventurer, that she doesn't really look forward to going on this next mission that just dropped in her doorstep. Kind of goes from there. The unfortunate part is that, I'm doing all of it at once, right? I'm not saying I'm doing A, B, C, and D. As far as the different types of edits you can do, I'm kind of going through, and then I'll do it again. And then I'll probably end up giving it to my wife, who was an English teacher, who will catch all the things that I probably didn't. And then after that, I'll send it to a proper editor, young lady that I've used before for a picture book that I wrote over 6 years ago. She did, and I finished it, and I didn't do anything with it. So one day I'll get back to that one, but there's a lot of editing ahead of me. So regardless, but a lot of the content needs to be expanded. There's some parts I know that are really solid that I will have to reevaluate, get beta readers to look at and say, hey, is this good? So what I might end up doing is I might end up doing chapter by chapter and then putting it on my Patreon, so that people can go and read chapter by chapter, that who are supporters and stuff like that, and just kind of go in as a first shot for beta readers. So yeah,
that's a good idea. And it is important to hit all the different notes of the editing as you go through the process. I read something the other day that made me laugh. That was, people always say to write the book that you want to read, and that is extremely important because you'll end up reading it 27 times.
Yeah. Well, my whole goal is I'm going to read this to my son eventually, right? So I want to be able to be proud of what I write. I want him to kind of be at the point where he's excited to read it again. But I think one of my favorite quotes is actually comes from Neil Gaiman, and he has this one quote from, and I literally stole it from his Masterclass series. I don't own it. It was just a commercial for it. But he said the process of doing the second draft and literally any draft after first is making it look like you knew what the hell you were doing all along.
Yeah.
So it's a true, that's what editing is. That's what running through the second draft and third draft is. It gets you to the story that you eventually want to release for people to read and enjoy, and hopefully also listen to. So.
Well, that's it, and that's the big thing, is to go through and to realize that generally your first draft it's not garbage, but it's nowhere near what you want it to be. And that's something I was going to say is, you finished your first draft, you have to go back and add in places, add that stuff. So if you have a word mark of 40,000 words, were you thinking to write to that mark and then go back and fill in afterwards, or are we I have to hit 40,000 words, I'm going to write 38,000 because I know that the rest is going to bring me to that mark?
No, I originally my original mark was on 25,000 words. I was like, I'm going to write 25,000, and then the book just kept growing and growing and growing and growing, and then I was like, well, I'm already past 25,000. I'm not even halfway through this story. I guess I was halfway through the story, and I was like 25,000. I was like, well, I'm just going to up it to 50,000 and just let it grow organically. And it's going to go as far as it can go. Because again, originally I started writing this as a podcast, and as I was writing it, I realized that I was actually writing it, the way I was writing it was as an audio book, as a book. So, excuse me. So, it only made sense to me that I wrote it as a book. I have it done. Once I have it done, it would be kind of be a dumbass idea not to publish it as a book. Yeah. So that's where I kind of went with it. But
that's something too that I try to keep in mind because you see everywhere all the different writers forums and stuff like that. People are like, well, my chapters are 6,000 words each. My book it's a fantasy book. It's 150,000 words, which isn't too much for a fantasy. There's
right.
110, 120,000 is usually not too bad for a fantasy. But this whole concept of like, my book is 150,000 words, what should I do with this? When you edit and go through the full editing, you're probably going to lose 10 to 20% of that amount. Like there's
or add. I mean, even within the editing the first page, I added like several hundred words. So there is a lot of places that I've marked and add more detail, right? So I know I'm going to need that, but it'll ebb and flow, right? It'll be that I've added this much, but I've subtracted this much because it doesn't make any sense. And I'm hoping to keep it within that 50,000 word, range, if at the end, But I guess we'll see. I mean, I've only just started editing it this week. Yeah, this week. So I took a week off last week. I was like, I need to just set it aside, come back another day, check it out, and see what's going on. But yeah, it's I only just started editing it, so I'm working through it. It's a slow process. So hopefully not as slow as the writing process, because that was like 7 months. But
yeah, it can be a very long, arduous process. Like I find that's the thing for me. I find editing is the more painful side of. It's like if you're doing drywalling, it's the editing is the sanding. It's the part where you get dirty, you get messy.
I can never get that stuff like flat. It always drywall. Like there was one point in time. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent again. I remember this one point in time. And I was upstairs in my old house. It was in a loft. It was a condo, and Anne, who I think I was only dating at the time, or maybe we were married. I don't remember, but she was living with me, and in our master bath, which was in our bedroom, right? She comes out. She's like, "You're gonna be mad." I'm like, "What? Why am I gonna be mad?" Right? And so I come downstairs. I mean, in her Herculean strength, apparently she was changing the toilet paper roll, and she ripped the toilet paper thing out of the wall. And I was like, I just laughed, and I wasn't mad. I mean, I was like, we just got to fix it. No big deal. I could never get that goddamn thing flat. I had to cut out the bigger hole, put that drywall in there to all the stuff, and it just never looked.
Well, that's the thing. To make it flat, you go from a hole this big, and you have to feather out this wide.
Oh, no, I know. We did that.
You go super wide and gradual.
But the edges, I sanded it until like my hand was like numb, and it's just like, I always knew. Maybe it was just in my mind, Travis, but it was like I always knew where that outline was. I kept seeing it.
Did you hit it with water?
No, wouldn't that ruin the wall?
No, it's the final step of sanding drywall mud is you take a sponge dipped in water and you run over all the drywall, and it smooths in any tiny little pockets that you have, and it smooths out the final edge as well. See, I used to work in construction, and I sanded, so like I drywalled and sanded someone's entire basement. And this taught me a valuable lesson to always clean up after yourself, because it was with a younger couple that I was doing this for, and they told me that I was like, I'm going to clean up. They're like, no, it's fine. We're going to clean up. They're like, just, because there's drywall dust everywhere. That stuff is just everywhere.
Yeah, so it explodes.
Yeah, so they ended up having a central vac, and they used the central vac to vacuum up all the drywall dust, and then promptly forgot about it. And then the next day or later that night or something like that, they went to vacuum upstairs, but the one upstairs was on reverse. So they turned it on, and they blew drywall dust through their entire house. Like, it coated everything in the entire house.
That's awesome.
So at that point, anytime a client was like, "Oh, I'll clean," I'm like, "No, I got it. Don't worry.
I got this. I don't want you to fill your house with dust, please."
Yeah, it was miserable. But so with this book that's getting close to being done, as we know with the Harry Potter books, they started at one age range, and then they grew and grew and grew and grew, and they become progressively more complex, darker, more terrifying things kind of added into it. So this being a book that was inspired by your son and kind of written for your son, and he's going to continue growing and aging, are you going to follow along the same premise and continue to broaden and deepen the depth of the stories as they go through, or are you going to keep it at the same level for all kids so that they can just keep reading along?
Well, I think so. Like I said, I wrote the two picture books, right? Because that was the age range that we were reading him to, and he's still learning how to read, right? So the picture books still are valid, right? But my plan is to eventually finish the 5 picture books. I have 2 of them done. I have an idea for mid grade, not mid grade novels, but chapter books, which is like the next step up, from picture books to chapter books. Well, easy readers, chapter books, mid grades, blah 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 blah. Right. So I have an idea for a series for chapter books, and and then I have these ones that I'm writing now for these mid grade novels, which I'm not sure how many I'm going to do. The next one actually is going to be a mystery, but follows along the events of this story lead into the events of the next story. But yeah, my idea is eventually go and kind of grow it with the audience. But what I want to be able to do is, you know, I talked about how my character Ichabod, the mouse who wanted to how wanted to fly, he created this flying contraption for himself, right? And it happens in the picture book. But what I want to be able to do is then take that invention and in later books, use that contraption in a certain way. Like there might be a city that's a floating city in the air over the ocean. Just pulling stuff out of my ass right now, right? Which is actually an idea, but I haven't really gone anywhere with that yet. But him using that actual device, that invention that he created back in the picture books, right? So that everything that I'm writing from picture books to chapter books to mid-grade to YA to regular novels, you can find a connection in all of them, right? Which is kind of nice. It's different than when J.K. Rowling did with hers. She kind of grew the series with her audience. She wrote a mid-grade novel, then kind of expanded it, because that's what the original Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone is classified as, and so is the second book. And then as the novels kind of get up in there, the Beyond Chamber of Secrets has more YA, and then it gets into the adult novels, which again sounds strange when I say it, but like just regular novels where it's super dark. Mm-hmm. But I want to do it a little bit different, where things that happen in the picture books, have relevance in the older books for older kids and adults. So if someone who is, because again, you mentioned it in when you were reading the bio, right? So my main goal is to be able to publish this all for parents that are gamers and not just Twitch streamers, but not the Twitch watchers, but people who love games, who are tired of reading books about trucks that talk and want to do something more down the line what they want. So even when they read these picture books, they'll read this, and if they read themselves something later on that has that flying contraption that he created, they could be like, well, I remember reading that to my kid. That's where it came from. So they can go back to that and see that, but it's, my hope is that the parents will also get a kick out of it, because I got tired myself reading books about talking tractors.
Yeah,
I need something for myself. So
well, that's even like with the Disney movies and the cartoons and especially the Muppet Show. If you go back and watch the Muppet Show, there's stuff in that I'm like, wow, how did they get away with that? There's stuff that would not fly nowadays. But that's something that I think is important, to be able to have something that grows along and that keeps the interest of everybody involved for that.
Yeah, because the parents are always going to want to buy it, right? So if they like it, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this out as a free podcast too. So parents could listen to it with their kids, and if they feel so inclined, and they can go buy the book, which will have more stuff in it than just the base story, right? Yeah. So
I think that's a great idea. That's something that is it's kind of the same premise that we're doing with the podcast, where you can listen to the podcast and have an hour-long snapshot of what we're doing, or you can come watch it be recorded live and see all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
The podcast is 100% marketing ploy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 100% marketing, right? And I'll be honest about it. I started doing a podcast, writing this book as a podcast, so that I could gain an audience, so I could go to an agent after I got an audience and say, hey, by the way, I have these picture books that I don't want to pay for the artwork for. Can we get a publisher behind this? Because I have all these people who love it. So, and it's still, I mean, I like the idea of being able for parents to listen to it for free for their kids, right? And I think there's a lot of great stories that kids have access to on podcasts now. And my son loves it. He loves audiobooks, and it's, again, I'm writing all this for my son, and it's a driving force behind that, right? I want him to be able to sit down and binge listen to 1,000 times my book that he has, like, the Great Mouse Detective, and the Dragon Defenders, or Star Wars Adventures in Wild Space, because it's kick ass that my son's actually listening to what I actually wrote, and B, if he enjoys it, then that's all that matters. So
yeah, you've hit your target audience.
Yeah, which hopefully, if my kid is a sample size, then great. Then all the other kids hopefully will enjoy it too.
There you go. Darius, I agree with you. The Muppet Christmas Carol is pretty amazing.
I don't know. I like the Star Wars one, where Mark Hamill was playing himself and Luke Skywalker running through the set of the Muppets looking for Darth Vader. That was always a good one.
Yeah. But there's actually something that's, because I've talked previously on streams about the parallel thinking, and that's something that a similar story will be created somewhere else in the world. That's not exactly yours, but it's kind of a mirror reflection. And I'd be curious to see if somewhere down the road, not now, but somewhere down the road, if you look to see if there was something like that. There is a book that I read to my daughter, and it's about this dog farmer who's driving his red truck. You may have read it, and as he goes along, he finds a cow, and he picks up the cow, and he finds a chicken, and he picks up the chicken, and he finds a sheep, and he picks up the sheep. They pick up so many animals on the way to the market that the truck breaks down, and all the animals have to get out, and one gets out and helps push, and it's not enough, and the next gets out and helps push, and then all the animals that were picked up sequentially jump out sequentially and help push until the truck starts running, and then they get into town. There's a Polish children's book that my wife read was read to her when she was younger, and a friend of ours gave to us for our daughter, and it's the same concept where there's this old farmer, or this old man, and he's trying to pull a turnip out of his garden, but it's this really big turnip and he can't pull it out. So he calls in and his wife helps, and then the grandkids help, and then the duck jumps in and helps, and the dog jumps in and helps, and the cat jumps in and helps, and all of a sudden you get this whole line of animals all trying to pull this turnip out of the ground. So it's not the same as the red truck, but it's kind of a mirrored version, and it's in the opposite side of the world, and it's just amazing to see how the similar concepts factor into stories.
I think there's a lot of kids' books, picture books specifically, about trucks being stuck somewhere, and because there's one, the Little Blue Truck, right? And it's just exactly the same thing. Like, his little blue truck was going to go down the road. He honks at the cow. He honks at the chicken. He honks at the the animals. And then this big giant freight truck comes down the road and he's like, get out of the way, I'm important. But then he gets stuck in mud. So he yells, help, help. But none of the animals are helping him because he's been rude to them. Right. So, but then the little blue truck is like, he gets behind him and starts pushing. And then suddenly, all the animals, he's like, beep, beep, come help. And all the animals come flock into it. And each one of them starts pushing behind to get this big freight truck out of this mud bowl, because the puddle suddenly stuck this truck in. It must have been a deep puddle. I don't know. Or it might have been Pennsylvania with the what's the things in the road, that potholes. It must have been a really deep puddle. But then it was the one frog, he went like this, right? And then the truck was out right after it had all these animals lined up behind it. So yeah, I mean, kids' books are like picture books. These concepts aren't new. But I think the underlining picture books have to have some sort of underlining, moral value for the most part, right? Um, they always have to have some sort of, and those things are definitely universal. You can find a lot of connections to those type of things, but I'm hoping with the two that I've written so far, and how they connect all together, that it's unique, right? And uh, but you might be right. There might be someone out there that wrote something similar about a steampunk mouse that, anyway.
Yeah.
Always
But
had a,
I
always
don't
had
mean
a
that
fly.
just
Who
with
knows?
your stories.
No,
I mean,
I
also
know.
with mine. Like,
Yeah.
and that's something that I've seen too. With like the example that I use is, what's the name of the movies? There was, I mean, Hush came out. Don't say or there's a bunch of movies that came out centered around loss of
Quietness.
senses, of not being able to speak, not being able to see. Like there was Bird
Bird Box.
Box was one where you can't see, and then there was the one with John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, which I'm
Yeah, yeah,
forgetting
it's
the
a
name.
quiet place.
Quiet Place, and then Hush
Mm.
was another one where you couldn't make any noise. So that, again, they're not the same story, but they're stories around a similar concept of being devoid of a sense in order to survive,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So that's what I kind of mean by parallel thinking, is that there's these things will kind of, and they seem to kind of pop up around the same time.
Well, of course they do, because like something's successful, right? And then quickly especially in the movie industry, everybody jumps on board to do. They have screenplay writers that are keeping track of these of the trends, right? And something successful, right? So one movie might come out, and you'll see within like a few months another movie might come out in the same way. I don't remember which one was the first, but it happens like that all the time, and it's kind of funny. But I'm part of this writing cafe, and a lot of them are the are screenplay writers, and they all have gone, down this path of writing stuff. And I actually got contacted by one of the screenplay writers in my writing cafe the other day, because the secret project, super secret project, codenamed Space Trash, is all based around space trash in space. And because I had this idea, because I remember reading that they're trying to put a space hotel in space that's basically like a luxury liner, like a cruise ship, in by 2027, which is not far away. It's 6 years, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, but then I thought to myself, well, what are all these people how are you gonna deal with all this space trash? And I was talking about it in the writers chat, and I had this one screenplay writer. She contacted me. It's like, hey, do you want to talk? I had this other idea. I had a similar story. I had a similar idea around space trash. Let's talk, because she was concerned that we were writing a similar thing, but it turned out our ideas are not the same, right? It's just, but that's the same thing. It's you might have one type of story. If you give someone a writing prompt, right, with a theme,
Mm-hmm.
every author will write something of varying different thing. Every person writes it, right? So it falls in line with that. I mean, she was concerned that I was writing but her plot for the space trash thing, she writes dark comedies. Hilarious.
Nice.
It's along the lines of Red Dwarf. Like,
Nice.
I would totally watch it. And if I told her if there's anything I could do in my power to get that produced, I would. But
Well,
I don't
we'll
have any power.
we'll have to talk, because I would love to tie your universe into mine. Because there is, in the line of Archinomus, in the opening scene, the speed jumper of the main character is destroyed or is damaged heavily by a piece of human trash that's floating through space. And that's one of the reasons that he's showing that that he thinks humans are still too immature for the mission that they're going on, is because they can't even pick up their trash in space. They don't take stuff out. They just leave all this stuff. So it'd be great if there was some way that we could tie in, like, even just like a certain chunk of whatever is, I don't know what the premise of your story is, but something within your story that happens to be the piece that slams into his ship.
We might be. We could probably work that out, right? I mean, a lot of the premise behind the space trash story is there are uh, it's not like a Game of Thrones type thing, but it's a kids book story series as well. It's probably either mid grade or chapter book type stuff, and it follows the kids that work for their parents that have of three separate families that have been contracted by the world to handle all the space trash, right? So, but it's the adventures they go on in this thing, and I even had a a series of a TV series kind of lined up too, which would be like a like a what is it, the Deadliest Catch? You ever see that show?
Yeah, I used to love watching that.
So I was like, it follows the parents, right, in a Deadliest Catch type scenario, but it's in the same universe as the kids, because the kids, they're working in space, they have their own little spacecrafts or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we could talk about it, see how it could fit in there.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
it may not line up, but it may also. There's actually another book that I haven't talked about on stream at all, and it's my super secret project.
Ooh.
And I won't even say the title of it, mainly because I don't remember what it is. But it's without going into too much detail, it is about. It's probably say mid-grade, or it's like a chapter book, and it is a little girl that meets up with an alien, and they go off on adventures. And they deal with racism, they deal with prejudice, they deal with all these different things. So it's actually the entire series, each book in the series deals with one or two kind of heavy-hitting topics that kids are being dealt face with. Because something that absolutely drives me nuts is when you hear these people talk about, if there's a gay couple walking down the street, or if there's, a black person doing something, and people are like, well, how am I supposed to explain that to my kids? Or like there's like with George Floyd and all that stuff that happens, like, well, like my kid's 5 years old, I can't talk to them about why everyone's upset about this man being murdered by the police. And it's like, well, you know what?
You have to.
If you belong to that race, if you belong to that situation, like if you're a gay couple or something like that, you don't have a choice.
No.
Those conversations happen at a much younger age than 5 years old. And these are things that it's a way of life. So it's such a privileged statement to be like, well, I don't want my kids to see that because I don't want to have that conversation with them. Well, it's not up to me to hide what's going on in my life because you don't want to talk to your kids.
And I don't have that luxury, as far as and I wouldn't have that luxury even if my son was white. I mean, he's African American, Hispanic, and French and Italian, so he doesn't look white, right? I mean, you see, if you go to my Instagram, you can see pictures of him. He's there, but like he looks Hispanic. He's definitely not. He's adopted, right? So I mean, I have to have these conversations with him because it is all part of life that he's gonna have to do. And it's good that you're focusing on those type of things, those type of books. It's a tough conversation to have. I mean, being raised where I was raised in the ghettos of Trenton, and I experienced all that from secondhand from friends that I hung out who were all African American, were all Hispanic, and even as a kid it affected me, and I never wanted to make my son naive to the world that is, right? Yeah. Just because even if I was able to have a child of my own, I wouldn't have raised him in that type of fashion where everything was just happy-go-lucky because that's the way it was. Yeah. And my son doesn't have that luxury. And there's a lot of authors who have written really good content about that. I added actually one of them to the list of people who were talking about feature interviews for the podcast, and he has written a lot of great books that touch on that subject. Nothing with an alien in it, so I think you're good. So but it's good to get to address those that stuff, right? And you have to. Because,
well, and that's the thing.
It's not just like black and Hispanic and Asian and everybody that's not white's problem. It's all our problem.
Yeah.
So,
And that was the thing too that I have, because my background is Irish as well, and I've had that thrown at me multiple times in my life. I had hey, welcome back, Alejandra. And I also want to say, Darius, yes, they could have gone to noisy play. They could have gone to a waterfall, but that would have destroyed the entire movie. Oh no, we can't make noise. Let's go to a waterfall. Roll credits.
that's right. It would have been done. The Quiet Place at a waterfall. Bum, bum, bum.
Lurk away, Alejandra. Thank you very much. But that's one of the reasons why I chose an Alien, is because you can really hit those targets and hit those marks and not, like, you can make the conversations easier for parents by discussing, like, why is this, like, the person's being looked at differently because, and it's actually not the alien, it's when the little girl goes into space that the aliens are like, right, what the hell's this? Right. So it's actually her that's being put through the paces and dealing with these things. But growing up with Irish background, I've had a university professor call me a stupid Mick. I've had a girl I was dating when I was doing the private policing stuff. She was from Russia, and her father, with me sitting there, looked at her and said, "He's Irish and a cop. Think about your future." I was like, all right. Like, that's, I mean, very small compared to the myriad of problems that happen to other races and races that have. But also being disabled, there's also things that I come across where it's like, just one, like, that's one thing, is just because you don't necessarily see it doesn't mean it's happening. Because you've got all these, like, all these friends of mine that are like, oh, well, driving through Quebec, which can be problematic, we're in Canada, in this one section of Quebec, where they're like, I've never had any problems with the police. The police are fine. I'm like, yeah, but you're all white. Like, there's a friend of mine who's from Somalia, and he was driving through this section one night, and he got pulled over by the police because his windows were tinted too dark. And he came to my house, and he was upset, and we're talking about this stuff because he's a really dark guy. And so he's like, they pulled me over. They said my windows were tinted too dark and whatever, and there was just like this whole thing about it. So I listened to his story, and I looked at him afterwards, and I was like, you know what the really messed up part of this whole story is? His windows aren't tinted. At all.
Yeah.
But they pulled him over and harassed him for 45 minutes because his windows were too dark. Right? And as a white guy, you're not going to get that. Like, for me, with being on medical marijuana, I drive down the street. It's legal, but if I've got cannabis in the car or whatever, even when it wasn't legal, I had a license. I never had to think twice. Because if I got pulled over, my car wasn't going to get searched.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a problem. It's obviously a problem, and I think more parents need to have conversations about it. And I think, and I'll just say it. I think, parents who are not who are white need to have those difficult conversations and be brave about it. Because it's something that's happening, and whether or not they want to recognize it, it's affecting their perfect little world. Is that's up to them, but it's happening regardless of what they think they're seeing or not seeing.
Well, that's it. That's something my wife and I have had this conversation. But even before our daughter was born, my wife looked at me and she's like, "How do we make sure that she grows up to be a good person? That she's not racist. That she's not doing those things." I'm like, by having conversations and by leading by example.
Yeah.
Like, treat people the way you want her to treat people. Like, show that there's no,
Parenthood is hard. And it just gets harder and harder. And I think as long as you can, and it's the thing. The thing is, if you think about it, right, especially in the United States, my mom lived through the end of segregation, right? It wasn't that long ago, and it was one of those things where, that it's still in their mind. It's still there. All these people that are in government now, the older politicians, they lived through this, so they still have the biases, they still have the thing. But once that generation is gone, every generation after them has been more accepting, and it's going to take a lot more generations before we get to a point where people aren't judging. But there will always be people that will be judging other people based on look. And I've said it multiple times. The only way that humanity is ever going to come together is if an alien race comes to the world and invade, and even if they invade or if they just are peaceful, that's going to be something new for them, for everybody to hate, right? And that's the only way that humanity, I think, will ever join together completely, because unfortunately, the nature of our species is that we we seem to just drive ourselves to find something to hate regardless.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing. But it takes a lot of it takes a lot of bravery to address those issues with as a kid, and I think writing books about it, addressing those problems, and even making characters that are in this series, in our books and our novels, that are not always going to be white. They don't have to be the lead character. I think that also gives a positive outlook on people, because there's so many negative connotations that are associated to people that are not white, that are stereotypes that people think they are. And we're getting down a total tangent. I'm so sorry, and it's very serious.
Well, no, but this ties in. It's good though, because this ties into writing, and this ties into kind of what I'm doing as well. Like I try to be as inclusive as possible in my writing. I use characters from, because I do a lot of short stories, and I use characters from all over the world in them, and that's something that not only is it important to be inclusive in what you're writing, but also to be actually inclusive. That's one thing that I've said before in a stream that absolutely drives me nuts, is when you see these things where it's like, there's this female protagonist who's really amazing, but she's gone through like the typical female protagonist backstory, and the whole thing is like, look at how amazing this person is, even though they're female. Or it's like, look what this person can do, even though they're disabled. And it's like, okay, well, you can have a character that's gay, that's female, that's that's disabled, that's of a different race, that's whatever, and that doesn't have to be their marker. That doesn't have to be the thing that is their personality trait. That can just be a sideline thing. That, and that's one thing I think with Black Widow they do really well, is Black Widow is not this whole thing of like, look how amazing Black Widow is, even though she's female. It's like, this is just a kick-ass person.
No,
that comes through, right?
She's just a badass, and that's nice.
And on a side note, that actually brings up, I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and I made a really solid realization about Hawkeye in the Marvel movies. And Hawkeye is a very, like, tertiary level character. Like, Hawkeye's the one that kind of everyone makes fun of, right? And I think the reason for that being is all of the other characters had really awesome entrances. They either had their own movies, or they were brought in a really cool way. Like, even Black Widow was brought in a really cool way in Iron Man. And she was shown, like, she was kind of, like, teased out, and then she was shown to be this real badass, and then she was brought in really well. Of all the Marvel characters in the MCU, Hawkeye is the only one that they completely fumbled the ball when they did his rollout. In Thor, the first Thor movie is when you first meet Hawkeye, and he is sitting there in a perch watching over, he's sitting there up on a perch watching over the hammer. You don't know he's got any special abilities. You don't know he's good at anything. He's just some guy that's guarding the hammer that's fallen to Earth. The second time you see Hawkeye, Loki takes over him in Thor Dark World, and Loki takes over Hawkeye, and he's going around, and again, he's just some random guy walking around, and then partway through the movie you see he can shoot arrows really well. And then
let's be honest, like Hawkeye has always been kind of the butt of all the jokes, even in Marvel comics, because he goes against these cosmic entities and he's shooting arrows.
Yeah. I mean, there is that aspect of it, but they completely messed up the role of his character. Like, they did not do him any favors.
No, but I think the guy that played it did a good job, right? And they're actually bringing out a Hawkeye series on Disney Plus, but it deals with him training his daughter, he's not going to do this series anymore. Like, the whole setup for this next generation of Avengers, I haven't seen a Black Widow movie, but there was another Black Widow that took over from Romanoff, for her a while before she came back, and so they're focusing on these characters.
And there's a new Iron Man as
daughter. Well. Yeah, well, Ironheart. Hopefully, they go down to Ironheart the range, or even the guy that played. Oh my God, um, War Machine, not the guy that played, but the person that was War Machine in Iron Man.
Yeah,
Uh,
Don Cheadle.
that character.
Oh, that
He actually
character.
took over the mantle of Iron Man for a while too. So Godland we're gonna go for that.
Yeah.
But Ironheart looks really cool because it's like another. I won't ruin it for you. You got to go look.
Ironheart, is that the young girl?
Yeah, it's young African American girl.
Yeah, so that's because I knew from I haven't read the comics, but I know from the comics that she creates her own arc reactor in high school and catches Tony's attention, and then he brings her under his wing and kind of passes the mantle.
Yeah, she's trying to kick ass.
Yeah.
But they're doing a good job. Like this whole thing with Loki, with the multiverse and all these movies that are coming out. I'm like, can't wait. But I'll be honest,
so excited.
I'm super stoked for Blade. I can't wait for Blade. I think Wesley Snipes was amazing. I'm sad they didn't bring him back, but the guy is playing Blade now.
Mahershala Ali is my man. I love that guy to pieces.
He's going to be great.
Yeah.
So
I think I understand why he stopped going by his full name, but I'm also kind of disappointed that he stopped going by his full name.
Yeah.
He now goes by Mahershala Ali, and his full name is Mahershala Al-Shabazz Ali. But yeah, when he was in I loved his role as Cottonmouth in
in Luke Cage.
That was just brilliant. And that's the one thing I like about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or just Marvel Universe is they bring in so many awesome, like the music is just so amazing.
The nice part about the whole thing is now it kind of loops Luke Cage and Daredevil because of the multiverse.
Yeah, that was
they actually can suck those characters in because I think the guy who played Daredevil was amazing.
Yeah, and they're bringing him back for Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's what they say. But I mean, it's a multiverse, so who knows on what say? You know, that's the.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this thing where it's going through. Like the Endgame was amazing, but the fact that they made Endgame a stopping post, just like a rest stop on the way to the real big badass thing is just I'm very my geek mind is just exploding at all of this. So.
Well, as long as they bring X-Men, the X-Men universe in soon, I'll be happy.
Well, apparently the X-Men, and they're looking at doing
Fantastic
Four, and now there's also rumors that for the time being, because I'm really beyond excited for Venom and versus Carnage. I think that's going to let there be Carnage. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Kind of a cheesy name, but I love Carnage. I love Venom. But now there's teasing and. What's his name was the guy that I'm blanking on his name, the guy that plays Venom. He was asked flat out, is Venom going to meet up against Spider-Man at Tom Hardy, and his response was very stoic, just well, I mean, if it works out to be that way, then I guess it would make sense. Which is they're kind of thinking that because of the multiverse, they can erase, or not erase, but bypass the terrible Venom they did previously. And that storyline.
Well, no, it's just another chain in the multiverse right there. Yeah. It's just that's what it is. It's exciting that they can combine these universes together. These things that Sony has done before, and Fox has done before, and or even failed before. Yeah. The Fantastic Four movies were horrible, both of them, I think. But all three of them.
Well, and that's the thing too, though, is there's. Both of the Human Torches have been brought back to life.
One of them was Captain America. So hey,
one was Captain America, and the other one was Captain America, and the other one is War Machine. No, not War Machine. From Black Panther, Killmonger.
Was it? Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. So he came back as Killmonger in Black Panther. So they've revived